Hey, how's it
Hey.
going? How are you? All right. So, thanks a lot for doing this, Stacey. A lot going on today. Just gonna talk about a little media stuff today.
Yep.
And
Did I lose your did I lose you, Lauren?
got some feedback. We got some feedback. I don't know what that
Okay.
is, but you might have. You might have. So,
So
we're gonna talk about Joy Reid
yeah.
and a bunch of other stuff because we basically have a situation where we have a situation really where her being taken off the air means a lot, I think, but you tell me. Tell me what you think of the situation off the top of
Well, let's start with the obvious. MSNBC now has parted ways with 4 prominent black women over the last few years. Joy Reid now being the latest, that joining Rashida Jones, who was the first black woman to head a major cable news network, along with Melissa Harris Perry and Tiffany Cross. These women, they provided, as you know, Lauren, I mean, essential, unflinching perspectives on race, politics. They took the president to task. They gave us perspectives on power. These are voices that are increasingly being silenced.
it. Mhm.
And then you see like Scarborough and Mika, Morning Joe, unscathed. And why? Look, they went down and kissed the ring.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that's got my attention in this moment is I'm trying to think of who at the network at MSNBC will bring the same amount of energy and knowledge that Joy would bring in that same way because that unapologetic voice of
Hmm.
someone talking who's African American from that perspective is hard to find on any show, anytime, any place, unless you really are independent media. And when it comes to
Well,
broadcast media and this sort of commercial media, certainly corporate media, it's really hard to find a voice like Joy Reid.
absolutely.
So, go ahead. You're going to say something. Go ahead.
I mean, you mentioned independent, and so the message is really clear, right? I mean, independent black voices are expendable. Bending to power is rewarded,
Right.
and so that's really what we're seeing.
And
Joy was not going to bend to that power.
That's right. And in this moment you would think they would want someone like her to counter Trump, right? So the you hear the press so much of the time say things like you're supposed to, speak truth to power to those in power. And with Trump we're seeing exactly the opposite. Everybody is too cowardice to challenge him. People are being taken off the air who are
Yep,
trying to challenge the lying. So Jim Acosta is the other one that comes to
Jim
mind in
Acosta.
this moment where I just have a sense that, Mehdi Hassan, Jim Acosta, now Joy Reid, Tiffany Cross. These are people who were saying it, and it's like they get in trouble for saying the thing that needs to be said. It's just that for
Well,
me. Go ahead.
it's true. I mean, listen, what we are seeing in real time is a calculated assault on the free press. And we see this with authoritarian regimes all the time. They control the media, they manipulate public perception. And we're seeing this unfold because we see Trump filed a lawsuit against 60 Minutes, for instance, right? He alleged that the program edited out former Vice President Harris's interview to portray her more favorably,
Right.
suing them. So, I mean, what president does that? What kind of president wages war against a news outlet for interviewing his political opponent?
Right.
A dictator, right? And then there's the ABC News, stunningly gave up $15 million to Trump to settle a baseless. You had political experts and law professors say how baseless that lawsuit was, but ABC quickly wrote a check.
Right.
They just wasn't in for the campaign, for the pressure that was coming. Um, and we know Trump has ordered all federal agencies to cancel subscriptions to outlets
Right.
like the New York Times,
Right.
Politico, Reuters. He cut off the AP from the Oval Office.
Right.
He's endorsed his people only speak to Fox News.
Right.
Only speak to Fox News.
Right.
So that too tells you they're consolidating the flow of information through
Right.
one single favorable channel. I
Right.
mean, look, state-run media.
Right.
He's also declared, he declared last week too, Lauren, that only the president can determine what is law.
Right. That's right. I mean, it's clear. I mean, it meets the definition of fascism. It is definitely, obviously, information control, which is what this ultimately is in the bigger picture. Which is that, I mean, I just think more globally that the Capitol was attacked because they were able to convince the right was able to convince these people that the 2020 election was stolen. Okay, and they were able to convince them through lying. And then that systematic lying was, in fact, platform and amplified by social media, primarily Facebook. And it had a
Mhm.
real world, real time consequence. And so when we see people being taken off the air that are trying to tell the truth in a clear throated manner, whether it's Jim Acosta, whether it's Joy Reid, or whoever it is, right? That to me speaks volumes about these so called news platforms that are either afraid of power, afraid of Trump specifically, or in fact are in some sort of corporate game that is going on that they don't want to tick off. There's a lot going on there. I happen to think personally that she'll end up, I mean, I'm a big believer in a door closes, another one opens. I think
Mhm.
she gets on StreamYard, gets on YouTube, and blows up huge, just like Jim Acosta did, and Chris Cuomo, and Don
Don
Lemon,
Lemon.
by the way, because
Mhm.
Don Lemon's doing great. I think he's at 500,000 now in subscribers. But Acosta has like 225,000 subs on
Yeah.
Substack. I mean, so they don't really need these platforms. I think legacy media is dying, but
Mhm.
this moment to me is consequential in so many ways. Go ahead, you're going to say something.
Yeah, well, just a couple things to your point about platforms, and they control X. The Trump administration controls X. They can pretty much control Facebook and by extension Instagram. They want to control TikTok, which is that whole situation. They want to own it. Um, so a lot of these programs, including yours, including ours, streams to the various programs, right? Various platforms. They are going to eliminate access or restrict access at
Right,
least to these platforms for certain voices. And it's a matter of, do you want to play it real cautious and or go along with
right,
them, or
right,
do you continue to speak truth to power? That's going to be a decision that people
right.
above my pay grade is going to have to make. But I tell you what, once they start talking about silencing our voices, then we have to be more of a Isaac Hayes the third type or a Chuck D type with their platforms.
Exactly. Now, it's interesting to think about the fact that a lot of the freer speakers are on YouTube, because of course YouTube being owned by Google,
Right.
and I'm bracing for some dumb thing to happen there that restricts
Yep.
everybody, because as we know, Facebook throttles what they want to throttle and lets you see what they decide they want you to see. And interestingly enough, of course, they decided that they wanted you to see a bunch of misinfo and disinfo in the
Yep.
2016 election and then the 2020 election. Again, this type of misinfo, disinfo world and environment that we live in has a real world consequence, right? So when you run into characters who are trying to tell the truth and are muted, you do have to wonder: is Google at some point going to do something stupid as well? I mean, I
They're
don't,
gonna
I don't
bend.
know.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, I don't know. But that consolidation of control amongst a few players is hugely problematic. Of course, looking at the inauguration on Jan 20, we saw a lot of those players, and we saw what who the Afrikaner did with X. It was like, look, I am going to change the face of this platform so that certain voices are not heard and certain others are heard.
Yep.
And the spike in racism that went up on X was tremendous and remains tremendous. So there's a lot to unpack there in terms of who gets heard, who gets doesn't, but they're consolidating they're consolidating information. They're buying information platforms. They're creating colleges that don't want to talk about so-called divisive concepts, which of course is Black history. They're banning books. There's a lot of things going on in this package.
A whole lot. But when you get around to silencing these strong Black women, when you punish critical journalism and dictate which news sources are acceptable, this is exactly how authoritarianism tightens its grip. This is totally about free speech, the freedom of the press, and it's just not just the free press that's under attack. Democracy continues its systemic dismantling. They are systemically or systematically, I should say, dismantling democracy. It's really nothing left of democracy, and history has shown that when all of this happens and when the truth itself becomes a casualty, now you are in a dictatorship.
Yeah, well, they went for that. I thought they were starting to go for this whole thing back in about 2010-ish. President Obama comes in office, they do the Tea Party thing, and there's this sort of misrepresentation of how the world works in terms of how what the government's reach was. What the Republicans do, what the right wing does, is they always say that there's too much government when a Democrat is in office, and then they sort of switch back when a Republican's in office, and now we've got this sort of idea that Trump has in his head that the entire office can be run through executive authority, because of course he doesn't want the Congress to have any power, because the Congress is getting browner and blacker. We have a record number of black elected officials in Congress on the federal level, and I suspect that it is not a coincidence in timing that all of a sudden now we're going to try to reduce the size of the government right at the moment when a bunch of black people are making decisions over it.
Yep.
So with that, the media, which was really the first to chicken out, because I get it. The media is there. Corporate media is there to make money and will do whatever it says, whatever it has to do to make money. What Les Moonves said at the start of the first Trump term about, he's good for business and all that, that's exactly where they have been at. So they can't be trusted because they are in fact corrupted by the money and the corporate interest. So they're really actually corrupted in the same way that our politics are corrupted. But there is a spinning circle of corporate control and people being muted because they're afraid to get out of line with corporate control that is actually disrupted our politics and the media. I mean, this is like amazing to me that those two things are coming hand in hand in this moment. And I think with Joy Reid, I think this is kind of MSNBC sort of giving a sacrifice, because you can't tell me, I don't know sitting here right now, and of course I'm going to check what the ratings are for Chris Hayes, what the ratings are.
Right.
We know that the ratings plummeted for everybody. We know
Yep.
that it started with Mika and Joe with the visit to Mar-a-Lago. So you're going to tell me that Joy's ratings were lower than Chris Hayes and lower than everybody else that was sitting there? Maybe that's true. I haven't checked, but that sounds a little bit hard to believe. And the thing that I sent you from Oliver Darcy about the report that the staff was caught off guard has me nervous, because I'm thinking, okay, they probably planned this after Rashida Jones left. So now it sounds like they didn't plan it, and now nobody knew about it, and they found out online. I mean, you kidding me? So that's worrisome.
It is. It's so disturbing, but everything that's going on, it's disturbing. Yeah, you could find something really alarming, not just troublesome, but alarming with just about every single thing that's been done since January 20th. And yesterday, was it yesterday or today? I think you sent me something on Enrique Tarrio, the Proud Boys
Right.
founder. One of the worst sights and you will ever see when you put everything into context. Enrique Tarrio confronting Capitol Police Officer Michael Fanoni, and that was how does that happen? How is that okay? It's like going after a victim from 9/11. It's like allowing the perpetrators of 9/11 to go after one of the victims of the World Trade Center. How
Well,
do you allow that?
there's several dangerous streams that are crossing here. Okay. One is that Trump has sent out a message to these people that he pardoned who attacked the US Capitol that you could do whatever you want. I will save you from prosecution. All right. Because, of course, many of those people were violent actors on law enforcement.
We
Okay.
see
So,
several of them going back to prison for rape and
right.
other
That's right.
sexual assault and other charges. Yep.
That's right. So Kyle Rittenhouse, it's really the Kyle Rittenhouse rule. And it kind of reminds me, too, of the Daniel Pantaleo episode where he chokes Eric Gardner in front of a camera. Everybody sees it on camera over Lucy's cigarette, so over nothing.
over nothing.
And then he is protected by the system. Darren Wilson, same thing. Darren Wilson kills Michael Brown. He's protected by the system. There's a GoFundMe, bunch of money's coming in, right? So it's a version of that. Like if you attack somebody that we don't like, that we've deemed, unimportant, the system will protect you. Which, if that's not a throwback to the South and Jim Crow era, America, I don't know what is. But the fact that this guy, Tario, can't go home, I don't know where he's from, but it is amazing to me. I get pardoned. He shouldn't have been pardoned, right? So now he gets the pardon. So now I've got to be in your face. I got to show up. And I don't know whether you heard today, but at JW Marriott in downtown DC, they had to evacuate for a bomb threat. They were having a conference with a bunch of folks. Fanon was there. A bunch of folks on the left who are, of course, trying to navigate this moment in American history just like everybody else is. And there was a bomb threat called into the JW Marriott. So this is how they play ball, and they get protected by the White House now. Okay, so now we're talking. Donald Trump has sent out a message to these people. You're protected if you do violence on the U.S. Capitol. Okay, the U.S. Capitol. So that right there is a moment to sort of take in. By the way, I should have said at the front of this show that there are some resources in the description of this video with regard to where federal employees can go for various assistance. You might notice that Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan and a few other members of Congress, Senator Mark Warner, they have on their websites a bunch of links for federal employees who've been fired, federal employees who need to blow the whistle, etc., and so on. So in this extraordinary moment, it's amazing the signals that are being sent. And unfortunately, the left, the Democratic Party, has nothing, or I'll say it this way. I think they perceive that they don't have a lot to fight with. I perceive it a little bit differently, that they haven't,
Oh, they've been taking, at least on social media, there's a lot of folks taking Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats to task because, Hakeem essentially a couple of weeks ago made the startling statement saying that there's nothing we can do. We're powerless, pretty much. And they're being taken to task. Like, what do you mean? The former vice president and the former president signed these book deals and agency deals, and somebody pointed out even the former president Obama was out somewhere, and the individuals will point out that the only person that's doing in the Democratic Party recognizable name, other than Jasmine Crockett's daily post,
right.
Bernie Sanders is going around the country talking about saving democracy, and he's alone.
Right. He's alone, and
and he's really not even a Democrat. He's an independent.
Yeah, I get that he's not a Democrat. I get that, certainly Hillary Clinton got more votes than he did. He did not win. I totally understand all of those things. I think that he has a voice, though, and he is speaking a certain truth to power that is unspoken by almost everybody else in the Democratic Party. I mean, the leadership certainly can't speak it because, again, the money piece is corrupting a lot of this. So you're not hearing a lot of things that are clear. I mean, the money is corrupting. It is a corrupting influence, and it's not just a few issues. It's a lot of issues. Certainly with regard to the tech sector. It's like nobody will correct the tech sector. There are no regulations on social media platforms. I mean, it's just like, and that is because the money is coming in to these politicians, not saying anything. So Sanders is jolting because he's like the only one saying it. And you're sitting there going, okay, why is he the only one saying it? Why aren't other people saying that? Now, there are a few characters. I think certainly Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We had Cori Bush saying a few things. Summer Lee. Cori Bush, of course, is not in Congress anymore. Summer Lee, of course, is sitting member of Congress. You do have a few people, but not as many as you would think. So one of the questions I think the Democratic Party has to ask is what does the Democratic Party stand for? What are they standing for? What are they willing to fight for? Who is the Democratic Party and what is the Democratic Party? I don't want to totally criticize Leader Jeffries. However, I do sense I don't know what's going on with him because I do think he has in the past been a very strong leader for them. Yeah. But in this moment, something is up because he's not talking as forthright as I've seen him in the past.
And you can only hope.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. You can only hope that it's one of those things, because we've had folks on Let It Be Known who say, well, we don't really want to say what is being said behind closed
Right.
doors. And with Jeffries being the leader there, maybe there's a whole lot that we just don't know, that he might be, very, very careful about, leaking any of it. I mean, that's, you can only
Well,
hope that that's the case.
well, Gabriel Sherman's piece in Vanity Fair with regard to the Republicans being scared because of death threats would make you know that if they're getting death threats, the Democrats are getting death threats. So I don't know and can't confirm whether or not Leader
Mhm.
Jeffries is getting death threats, but I would pretty much bet he probably is. Okay, so
Oh, no question.
so
Yeah.
because members get all sorts of crazy stuff that happens. We got several members who are getting dignitary protection, and because something is going on. Okay, so I sense
Well, and
that.
that's but it's funny you say that,
Mhm,
because I really wasn't going down that line,
mhm,
as more as maybe they're discussing some plans that they don't want to release. But you're right, and keep in mind, this president will remove any type of federal protection in a minute. I'm
right,
talking Secret Service. I mean,
right,
look how he took. People might say, "Oh, that doesn't really mean much." He took Biden's and Obama's. He took their security access
right,
from them.
right. Well, and then you've got Cash Patel sitting there at FBI, so you know that if something happens, it's not going to get investigated. Like one of the first moves they made was to take down the database for with regard to
Oh, yeah.
police violence. So
Yep.
they are signaling, of course, with every single day that passes, an anti-blackness, obviously anti-inclusion, anti-diversity, just willy-nilly with absolutely no thought given to the specifics of the individuals, as we just saw with the Joint Chiefs of Staff chair. It doesn't matter what your resume says or what you've done or not done. If you are Black, Hispanic, or female, we're just going to get we're assuming that you were not qualified. And so the fact that that's happening, and Cash Patel is sitting there now we're trying to move 1,500 personnel from the FBI to Alabama and all this other nonsense. That tells you that if you're an elected official, sitting elected official right now, and something goes down, that would be not investigated. I mean, you can almost assume that nothing would happen on the back end, particularly after seeing a pardon of 1,600 people. So that's got to be scary if you're a sitting elected official. And I'm going to go ahead and assume that there's something going on that we probably don't know about yet, that we'll find out 20 years from now in the book that is going on with Leader Jeffries, because I can't believe that this is the leadership right now. I cannot. I also think we shouldn't let Schumer off the hook. I think
Oh,
he's
without
always
question.
been weak. So
Oh
unlike Jeffries,
gosh,
he's
yeah.
always been weak.
He's
And
right, right.
yeah, and so it's not like he's. I don't know why everybody always focuses on the House members, because Pelosi, when she was there, we're always focusing on the House members. Like, well, what is the Senate doing? They have more procedural ability to hold the thing up and delay things than
Yeah.
the House does. So
And that's
at
another
any rate,
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
they did not contest, not strongly contest any of these nominees. Everything was just handed to them.
right.
It's like we give up. It was a surrender.
That's
And
right.
we saw that with President Biden on his way out before he left office. I will always remember he sat there and gave that speech and said basically he essentially said, he didn't say this word verbatim, but he essentially said he was handing America over to a dictatorship. And
Yeah. Mhm.
he was in a position, at the very least, in my view, and nobody has disputed this, he was in a position at the very least to make that landing a little softer,
Right. Right.
and did
Well,
nothing
one
except
of
I told you so. You didn't
one of
vote for us. I told you so.
right. That's right. Well, one of the moments that definitely has to be figured out with the Democratic Party, and I've heard people say it already. It's fairly obvious, but it certainly bears bringing up in these last few minutes that we talk here together. Okay, is that look? People work very hard to get people elected, help out with campaigns, knocking doors for free, particularly in the Black community, particularly the grassroots. The grassroots did not get the level of funding that they should have during the Harris campaign. And there's something to be said for the fact that all that work, all that stuff, all that energy that goes into this, uh, the Democrats' leadership style is lacking. It is not urgent enough. The fact that we're
Never
sitting
has
here
been.
in Maryland, Mosby, Trump sits there and pardons 1,600 people in one shot, and Marilyn Mosby can't get a pardon. So all that work is for nothing if you're not going to use the power that you have, right? So that is a problem with the Democratic Party.
And
Bigger. Go
the
ahead.
idea of them, wanting to do everything, let's do it by the book.
Right. Right.
Let's do it with, let's show them style and grace and class. Let's
Yep.
go to the inauguration. It's like,
Mhm.
get out of here with that.
Mhm. Yep. They wanna be the adult in the room, and there are no adults. You have to play, you have to fight the fight that you've got in front of you, not the fight that you wish you had. And it's more than just bringing a knife to the gunfight. They are on another planet of thinking about how leadership happens and about how things get done. So that's been a big problem. Anything else, Stacey, before we bounce? And I'm going to bounce to,
Yeah.
interestingly, Win with Black Women and Win with Black Men are joining tonight. So I think that's the first time they've ever done that in lieu of the Joy Reid news. They're joining their thing. That is to be seen on YouTube. If anybody wants to watch that, there is sort of an in-house way to sign in, but you don't really need to do the in-house way to sign in. You can watch it on YouTube. But anyway, Stacey, go ahead.
No, I mean, listen, I was gonna say that's it. Go over there, watch that. That is great that they're something like this. Well, they've always been together, but to bring the two groups together because of the situation with Joy Reid, it shows you just how important Joy Reid is. Number one in our community and journalism and in the Black community,
Hmm.
but for them to understand, and this is what I appreciate as we leave, but I appreciate this idea that okay, we are calling an emergency meeting.
Right.
Let's,
Right.
we can't sit back is what they're saying. So we're calling this meeting and everybody's invited. And then everybody's gonna show up. That's the beautiful thing. Everybody's gonna show
Right.
up.
Right. Absolutely. And I think it's great that that's happening just as a symbol of, unity and recognition that this is not a normal moment. I think Joy Reid is going to do great. I think Joy Reid should get on Substack tomorrow, but I hear the show has another week.
Another week. Yeah.
I think she blows up no matter what she does next. She has a huge audience on TikTok. And I'm always watching the TikToks as they go by. She's going to be fine. And in fact, I actually think she's going to thrive a lot better than you do in these. One of the things about being on network TV is they have the blocks, the block A, the block B, the block C. She doesn't have to do any of that anymore. So Don Lemon is a great model right now, as are a lot of others, certainly Roland. And that's pretty much it. Stacey, thanks for being on.
Absolutely.
The switches of the background were intentional. Even though it looked crazy and haphazard, of course, because I'm learning how to do background. So for the audience, it'll be a lot calmer probably next time. But thanks a lot, Stacey, and I'll see you soon. I'll obviously see you. I'll be watching you at 7:30 on Let It Be Known, which is on every day. Everybody, Let It Be Known, 7:30 a.m. In the morning. Black Press USA. Do watch. We'll be back soon.